something that is near and dear to both of our hearts. What is the future of a downtown Niceville going to look like? So a little bit of background on this. There is a unit within the city called the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency, that is run by the city. And they're tasked with building up kind of like blighted areas of towns. Every town in Florida can pretty much have one. The long story short is they're going to take that piece of land that's by where the old library used to be, close to Post 20 and not the front porch, it's now called Blue Collar Cafe,
Blue Collar,
and revitalize it. Well, they want to do a bunch of downtown stuff, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, but the idea is that they use tax revenues to make that happen. And it can be pretty much, there's so many possibilities, right? And Paul, you know a little bit more about this because you have a few more touch points with this, but
Sure.
kind of explain to us why this is important for our future in Niceville.
Sure. Well, real quick, I think the first important thing is that CRA itself goes beyond just this downtown area that they're planning to build. CRA actually covers a fair amount of Niceville, stretching from the water almost as far as Central Parton and kind of the town hall, city hall area.
And off Turkey Creek.
Yep. And even some points a little further west. But there's a map. You can find it online.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. And but outside of that, exactly what you said, the city is planning to develop that area near the water there behind Post 20 and Blue Collar Cafe. They've done everything they need to do from like a zoning perspective, or at least they're pretty close to being done to kind of increase density there. And it's going to be mixed use, so there'll be commercial and residential there. And I think they're just now kind of working through the maturations of like how to do that and how to structure it. The city already owns the land. They're already doing all the zoning and things necessary to make it happen. Now the question is do they turn it over to developers and let them run with it, or do they maintain a stronghold control over it and then own the land for the long term?
And I would say that's probably the thing that is going to be the biggest controversy as we move forward, is whether or not the city itself should own the land and become a landlord, or if they should sell it to a development group. Or have some sort of public-private partnership where sort of a non-profit-y kind of vibe thing goes on and people rent it from that. There are pluses and minuses to all of them, right? So, for example, City Councilwoman Kathy Alley said in the CRA meeting, like, you know, if we had held on to whereas it's not Beach Bank, it's First Bank now. That used to be city land. That used to be where the library is. And if they had held on to it, they would have had a whole 7 acres of property to use. So she makes that point that, hey, you know, we should hold on to all of this so that we want to do something new with it, and however many years we're ready to go. Of course, downside to that is if city owns it, it's not on tax rolls, which means that it's getting a tax break, which means the burden to cover that falls on the rest of us. And
Sure.
As people that don't love, you know, I like paying taxes in the sense that I love being, you know, I feel it's a patriotic duty, but that's not the point.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to what is your belief. Should city, state, and federal government own land that is then developed by somebody else? So that fundamentally comes down to like sort of like being like a ground lease.
Yes.
Right. So we're gonna keep the land. We're just gonna approve what's gonna be on it. We're gonna charge the developer a 100-year ground lease, and we're gonna maintain it. That is the tact that Eglin Air Force Base has been taking with some of their property. And I don't think there is a ton of examples yet where that has proven to be successful or unsuccessful. It's sort of like a model that's just starting. But yeah, I mean, I understand. I mean, listen, real estate and land in general over time goes up in value. And so if the city sells it, it's obviously going to be worth more in the future. It's also just, do you fundamentally think your city should be in a business of being a landlord?
And so we had an issue with this at the county when I worked at the county probably 4 or 5 years ago. The water and sewer building, known as the Taj Mahal by groups of people that didn't like that the city built a really, really expensive water and sewer building back in the day. It sat mostly empty for a long time and had many floors and offices that weren't used. And so they were like, well, let's lease it out, which, I mean, it makes sense. You built the thing, you should have the thing.
Right.
But one of the issues that my old boss, Commissioner Nathan Boyles, brought up was that now the government is competing with private industry to make money. And so you have the same kind of issue with the tax collector's office. And everybody here knows, and I'm not ashamed to say, that I'm a huge fan of the tax collector, and I think that he does a great job. And one of the things he does do is he leases out part of that tax collector building to generate that revenue. But again, that means that he's in the business competing with private industry to provide a service. And we have to decide as a society if that's what we want. If we want the government essentially subsidizing or allowing for it to compete with private business owners, private landowners.
Well, I think the other thing too is you're going to really, if you decide to land lease or ground lease it, you're really going to limit the number of developers who are going to be willing to bid on that, because a lot of the value for developers is not only taking the land and improving it, but then the promise of later being able to sell it, and owning the dirt that's underneath the building that you just paid to be built. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people who get scared away from wanting to develop this project if the city says, oh, we're going to ground lease this for 100 years. I think that's going to turn a lot of people away. So I don't know. I'm a little bit conflicted on it. I completely understand why the city would want to maintain
it's
the
a
land
valuable
and
piece
keep
of
it.
land.
Yeah, it's valuable.
Yeah.
But I also understand that there's going to be some long-term ramifications and even short-term ramifications of that. I think it'll make it hard for developers to want to bid on it.
Changing gears a little bit to what this thing is actually going to look like. So envision kind of 6 acres. It's a pretty big parcel of land. It's right there on the east side of Bayou. Yeah. They essentially, I think, want to turn it into a little New Orleans from the photos of everything from the shutters to how the roofs are going to look to what colors of material they can use. Just like close your eyes and imagine a very clean, I'm assuming, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Very Southern plantation-esque kind of vibes.
Yeah, and I kind of think like I don't know if this is true because I haven't really seen any of the designs yet, but like if you go to Baytown Wharf, for example, where there's already like condos and apartments that are available there, and then you have these restaurants and different businesses that you can kind of walk through, and it's high density. A lot of those buildings are like just a couple of feet apart from one another. Or
they could even be multi-wall. What is it called? Where they share a wall, but it's commercial.
Yep.
And then
just multi-tenants in one building. So I think it's the right move to have an area like this in Niceville. I think it's going to be great when it's all done. I think the devil's in the details on the in between, and what it's going to take to actually do it.
Well, I'm excited about the idea of having the mixed use because you get a really cool place to be, restaurants, shops, whatever. And then on the second and third floor, you get places that are really cool to live in, right? And they encourage walkability. They encourage fewer cars on the road, which we all know is kind of a problem right now. And in my perfect world, there's a bus or a shuttle, somebody with an entrepreneurial spirit, maybe even, they don't even take it to the government. And they say, like, I'm going to run 4 15 minibus type buses from this place to base every day, all day, and reduce the traffic on the road.
We could do that. I also think they have I know the city has a plan to increase multi-use paths throughout the city. So there's definitely an opportunity where people are going to be able to go on a family bike ride at night, or in the late afternoon,
not get run over.
Yeah, they'll be able to go there and there's a lot of houses that are within bikeable reach of where they're building, that downtown area where they're planning to build it. So.
I would even say here on the east side of town, if we have enough safe roads, it's it's only really 4 miles one way. I mean, I wouldn't have a 6-year-old do it, but I can get there pretty easily.
No, but I mean, you got a nice ice cream shop down there, and you can go down there and get some ice cream with your kids, and then sit waterfront,
for free. Not the ice cream, but the sitting.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in alignment with what we always talk about with third places and small towns. So I think it's the right decision, and it'll be fun to watch over the next couple of months to figure out which direction the city heads in.
What are the things that you're hoping that the city will not do with this property? And you can't say another Walmart.
Well, no, I don't think you're going to get big box stores going in there. I think they're going to be, local shops and small purveyors, and open up the opportunity for some folks who already have successful businesses in and around Niceville to either open up a second store or move there. So I think that'll be cool. What do I not want to see? Yeah, I don't want to see the big boxes there. What I do think is going to be great is you pair this with the pier that they want to build out, and you have a great venue for Ruckle Middle School and Niceville High School Chorus and Choir to come. We don't have to go across the bridge anymore and have them sing at Destin Commons. So I think it's going to keep like more of our community-related things here in Niceville. I'm sure there's going to be opportunities for a wedding venue. Or at least, a place for wedding photos to be taken. And, I think it'll be done correctly. I think it'll be done nicely. Again, I think it's just the intermediate steps to get to that final look and feel that they want. The one thing it's not going to do it's probably not going to help our affordable and attainable housing issue. I would imagine any residential that they build there is going to be fairly expensive to live in. But outside of that, I think it checks off a lot of boxes and a lot of needs.
I know we have a lot of single family housing that's detached, that's really expensive.
Yeah.
But would, even multifamily, really expensive, together housing, would that alleviate some of the pressure that's on that segment and then therefore reduce prices some?
Maybe from that, like a trickle down effect. But I would imagine, especially if they're going to ground lease, and the developer really's got to make money on the rent, that I just wouldn't see it being all that affordable or attainable for folks. But we definitely need some variety of housing more than we already have, and so I think it would potentially relieve some of that kind of trickle-down effect, where you have a lot of single military folks just loading up in one house. Maybe now they're looking at a downtown area like that, and they're saying, I think maybe I just want my own place, and I get to be close to some restaurants and some bars and some other services.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Early voting started today, so make sure you get out there and vote.
You have roughly 2 weeks. Today is Monday, so 2 weeks and 1 day, not including Sundays, to vote. We have a lot of stuff on the ballot this year.
Check out our previous video.
Yeah.
Right here.
We're moving over.
Right here.
Yes.
That talks about all the voting
but
stuff.
We talk about everything that's voting. We have an article that I'll post in the notes as well, so you have everything you need to know. It's nonpartisan, as it were.
You have no excuse. Vote.
Please vote.
Yeah.
Please.
It's important. Okay.
All right.
Be nice, Niceville.
You heard the man.